Today on Eco Show, we'll be talking about, is Japan creating Godzilla? We'll also be talking about ways that dolphin mothers communicate with their babies. And what else have we got? We've got our animal of this week is a mysterious animal that Europeans thought was maybe a unicorn. And we got some good news at the end there. This is Eco Show. Hello and welcome to Eco Show. I'm Henry. This is Eco Show, a show about ecology, the environment, research, and happenings and such. I go through an animal, thing, insect of the week at the start of the show and then talk about a little bit of research and then wrap up with some recent news. So, this week, our animal of the week, it was thought for a while to be some sort of mysterious creature, and it is the Okapi, which is a animal that you may have seen in zoos. It's usually pretty popular there. The name Okapi means to cut, and it is the only living member of the genetic family Giraffidae besides, as you might guess, the giraffe. It's about a meter and a half tall at the shoulder, which is about 5 feet, and it has stripes for camouflage on its hind legs. We'll have a little photo here of an Okapi. They have a pretty amazing look. It is considered by some to be a living fossil because it has gone relatively unchanged for about 7 million years, and they're able to tell that by seeing how its structure in fossils of it is generally unchanged for 7 million years. So it's got a pretty good design plan if it's been able to stick around for that long. Its range is in this very remote area of the Congo, which is up in the top region of the Congo. It's diurnal, which means it's doing its thing during the day, but it also has really good night vision. And they're solitary for the most part, except to breed. They are herbivores, which is kind of where that name to cut likely comes from. And they've got a very long tongue, which we'll have a photo of, which they use to groom and eat. So sort of the conservation down low on these is that they're super endangered. So they're in the Congo, which has been in lots of conflict for many years in this area in particular, where their habitat has a lot of rebel groups, which can be very dangerous for them and for people looking after them. So this is a very tricky situation to work through. They're estimated to be at about 10 to 15,000 left, down from 45,000 in 1995. So they're dropping pretty quickly. This is a lot due to logging and human settlement, because those are decreasing the amount of habitat that they have, as well as being a direct threat to them. Also, other issues are illegal mining and bushmeat hunting, as well as taking their skin for sort of poaching related purposes. I was thinking about this as I was writing this, is it would be a really good horror movie if there was a creature in the woods that would like capture people, or even think about this, a creature in the city. There's a creature in the city that comes around and it skins people, and then it takes their it takes their skin and like eats them is just a wild, like that sounds like a horrible creature. And that's pretty much us in the forest. Obviously it's a complex issue. I'm sure there's people aren't stoked to kill it. There's a lot of poverty in that region, so there's it's not like people are evil or whatever, but people got to do what they got to do. And that's where a lot of focus on conservation of these is working in local communities and attempting to provide people with the resources that they need so that they don't have to go in and cut down trees, because a lot of times what will happen is you cut down trees in the forest and then you burn it, and then that makes more fertile land. So there's been some attempts to create agricultural systems, implement agricultural systems that are a bit more sustainable, that don't require cutting down trees. But at the end of the day, people are going to do what they're going to do to live. As we've seen in Costa Rica, they've had a huge amount of success with forest restoration by paying people not to cut down forest. And at the end of the day, that's really what you have to do. If you want to grow back forest, if you want to stop people from cutting down forest, especially in very impoverished areas where people are living on the land that they need to survive, you got to do that. And I think we've got the resources to be able to do that. So Okapi are very common in zoos, and they are bred in zoos. They've been doing this for a while to keep the genetic diversity up. So that's kind of one of the things where zoos, that's the space that zoos are moving into, where they can have a positive impact, where they're kind of genetic banks where you can keep track of the genetics of endangered species and make sure that you're keeping them as genetically diverse as possible. Because if you have inbreeding go on too much, then you can have a lower chance of those species being able to survive into the future. There's a big Okapi wildlife reserve, which is really like the main zone where these are in, and this is in the Congo, but it's a very dangerous area. In 2012, a rebel group raided the reserve headquarters and killed several people and killed all the Okapi that were there. So it's a pretty intense working environment to be in, and that is an ongoing area that is, as long as you've got these active conflicts going on, it can be very challenging to be able to keep these safe. But they're a pretty amazing creature. 7 million years that they've been hanging out doing their thing, and they're a big test example of species that you want to protect and conserve. And a lot of, at least people who look at Okapi, from some articles that I read, they're saying, this is keeping them, these populations, healthy are so important for so many conservation efforts, because they really represent a big reoccurring issue with conserving species, in that they're in a complex environment where you have poverty as well as warfare going on. And if you're able to keep these populations healthy and going on, that can be taken as lessons for many other species. Okay, so that's the Okapi. And now we're going to, this is kind of a short one for a research section, but there's been some research on dolphins, particularly research being interested about baby talk. So it's known that humans do baby talk, which is, like goo goo gaga. or like goo goo gaga. So it's like speaking in usually higher pitched or lower pitched tones to your baby. And it's sort of unknown about if this is done with if other animals do it. So they were looking at dolphins to see if they do it because they're kind of some of the smarter other animals out there along with us. I didn't know this as I was reading it. The purpose of baby talk is that because it's beneficial, apparently it's very beneficial for babies to hear baby talk, and apparently that's because it helps the baby as their hearing is developing and everything to identify the parents or identify the mother across a wide range of voices. So in the room or in different places, there may be sort of a general tone that most voices have, but then when you go above that, more high pitched or lower, it can be a sort of way to bring in the babies, let them know that you're there, and give them some comfort. So they're looking at seeing if dolphins did this. So let's have a look at this little video. And this video, you'll hear first the sound a dolphin makes when it's just talking regularly, and then you'll hear it speaking to its baby. So you can see if you can tell a difference, and then it will repeat. So we'll do normal talking and then baby. So you'll hear 4 things in total. Okay, so see if you could tell the difference there, but definitely the I'll just double check and listen to it myself. Yeah, so I don't remember exactly what I said, but the one where it's more high pitched, where it goes, that's like the first one, and then the second one was like, it goes really high pitched, and so that one is the one where it's talking to its baby. So they found that dolphins do use baby talk to talk to their babies. So that's about that on that. It's just a cool little video. Okay, and now moving on to news. We have got the big thing today, which I want to go over, is this nuclear emission situation that's going on in Japan. So may or may not have heard about this whole situation, but a basic overview is that in 2011 there was a big earthquake in Fukushima, Japan, and it broke the nuclear power plant and led to a meltdown. So and since then they've been spraying down these cores with seawater and collecting the seawater that's been contaminated with nuclear emissions. And Japan is planning to start releasing that water, which has been treated, and they're going to release it through a pipe that goes a kilometer out into the ocean, which really isn't, I mean, a kilometer doesn't sound like that much. So the station exploded, damaged cores have been sprayed with water to stop them from overheating. And now there's 1.3 million cubic meters of contaminated water that are held in big containers. And there's 64 radionuclides initially in this water after you spray it down. And some of these will have decayed already, so meaning that they aren't harmful. But some of these radionuclides, like carbon-14, have a 5,000 year half-life. So it's going to be sticking around in the water. And they have a method that they use to treat this water, which takes about, I believe it was 62 of those 64 radionuclides out of the water. I think the only ones left are carbon 14 and tritium. And and so this is all from a Nature article, which is summarizing it, which I'll put the headline of the article will have been at the start of the section if you want to read it. They haven't really said what they do. They're going to do with the trash of with this 62 radionuclides that they're treating out of the water, but presumably they're going to do something on land with it, so they don't have to explain what they're doing to the international community as much. So anywho, they have this treated water. They dilute it down even more, and then they release it. And so that's their method for disposing of this water. And they're going to start doing it. And there's been a bit in the news about it. Many countries around the area are very unhappy and are threatening to start some issues with trade going on. China and Korea are definitely pretty not stoked about it, understandably. And I mean, even a kilometer off the coast doesn't sound that great. So here's what some of the views on the whole situation are, and this is the Godzilla thing at the start that I was saying. So because it seems like this is how you get Godzilla, basically. But one of the people that they interviewed in this article, Jim Smith, who's an environmental scientist at the University of Portsmouth, says that following the treating of this water, that there is quite a bit of a lower risk of it being a big issue. And the thing that he points out is that the risk is worse of if another earthquake hits and these tanks have all these contaminated water in it, if they aren't, if they get broken. So he started pointing out that you've got this issue, and basically doing nothing is a bigger risk than what it is that they're going to be doing. And so that's sort of the argument that's saying it should be done. A lot of other scientists are saying, and countries are saying, that there's not really enough evidence to prove that it's safe for the claims that they have been making about it. It's some municipal sort of situation that's treating it. So it's the local body there, and it's treating it. And one of the worries is that it'll concentrate in fish. So just as mercury concentrates in fish, so too people are worried about these radionuclides getting concentrated in fish. People are saying there's not enough evidence. It may bioaccumulate. An interesting thing to note that they pointed out in this article is that a lot of power plants are already doing pretty similar things, in that they release this contaminated water out into the ocean. And the idea is that you're diluting it enough that the radioactive particles that you're putting out into the ocean are below the levels that are naturally there in the ocean. This is sort of their reasoning behind doing it. That's not necessarily a good thing, and I don't have the background to really be able to break this down enough to really say what would be good or not. But it definitely is something that needs to be done about it. But when you've got so many countries around that are really opposed to it and are voicing concern, then you've got to at least bring them in with a super high level of transparency, which it's not very clear is totally there at this point. So, a very unfortunate situation all around, and not a issue that is going away anytime soon, especially if it leads to like a Godzilla situation. I don't think it will, but you never know. You never know. I think Godzilla may have, I don't know if Godzilla was from pollution or was from like a nuclear bomb experimentation, you know. But it was some sort of thing related to that. Okay, so that's that situation. That's ongoing. That's kind of the bad news of the week. Sorry about it. But we gotta talk about some of these things. And how are we doing there? Doing good. Okay, our next news piece is that there's some restoration, some ecological restoration going on in Scotland on Loch Lomond. Loch Lomond. And we have a photo of Loch Lomond. And this area has been surrounded with invasive plants, and they have been removed, and they're going to start restoring the oak forest there. And a big part of restoring the forest, which they pointed out here, that I thought was interesting, was that it's not just about just planting the trees, but you need to bring back mosses and lichens into the forest. So they've tried doing a tree paint that has a whole bunch of spore and seeds and things like that on it of lichens to promote growth, but it hasn't quite worked. But now they'll be attaching lots of netting through the forest to encourage these things to grow back. So we'll have a photo here that will show the forest, and this photo looks very nice. Looks like a nice forest, but when you look closely, you can see that there's not a whole lot growing on the trees, and a lot of those lush green plants are actually an invasive plant. And a problem with when you get one plant just run through a forest like that is that it's decreasing the diversity of other plants there. And that trickles up because they'll have different plants will have specific relationships with insects that will be particularly palatable for birds and so on and so forth. So it's important to have this complexity in your system to support a complexity of processes that are using nutrients and making a happy, magical fairy place. And then we'll put a photo at the end of how this should be looking, which would be they look a little bit spooky when they're all mossy and everything like that, but that is benefiting diversity in the forests. Okay, and our last little positive news article is that there was an Okapi born at the Chester Zoo named Abby, and we have a little video of of Abby wandering around the enclosure, and we've got Abby with the mama looking around. 6 weeks. So these are some of those animals that can walk immediately pretty much as soon as they are born, but they'll be down just in have been staying with the mama, so this is the first time out and about, having a trot around, and they have this amazing coloring on their legs, which is a helps them camouflage in the forest, and it may look like it makes them obvious, but it's that sort of makes them look shaded up against the brush and everything like this. And a cool thing I was reading about them as I was reading up for this article is that the parents are thought to make a sound that I think they called infrasound, which is below a detectable sound level for humans. But they can see the mothers making sort of a motion that looks like they would be making a sound, and then the little ones will respond to it. That wasn't in this video, but that's just kind of a cool side note, which would be a good skill to have if like these creatures, you're in the forest and you want to be able to make a sound, but you want to choose who you're attracting, and you don't want to attract predators to you. And these are particularly good at one of the things that's hard with conservation with these is that it is challenging they're so elusive that it is challenging to keep track of just how many there are, because they're so good at keeping to themselves and staying away from people. And what usually is used to track them is the poop, but their poop looks a lot like the poop of another animal in the forest. So it can be hard to tell. Anywho, that is our show for this week. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you have a great week, and we'll catch you all around soon. Okay, bye.